Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of Grassroots Chaser. I know I say thanks a lot to everyone who continues to support the show, but it really does mean a lot to me seeing all the likes and shares, and it gives me a lot of encouragement to keep going and to keep bringing you guys motorsport stories from a variety of people. If you know anyone who would like to be on the show, send me a message and I'll see if they're keen, or even if you have your own motorsport story, share me. Please, let me know as I'm always up for a chat. But on to tonight's guest, who has raced a variety of different categories from Formula Ford, Formula 4, TCR, Toyota 86, TA2, and a lot of other cars. So, to find out more, I welcome Jimmy Vernon. Is that how I say it?
Mate. Yes, Jimmy Vernon. Hey,
Right.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Well, it's great to have you on the show. It's quite rare that I find a lot of people who've done so much in their motorsport career. So when did you find your passion for motorsport and where did it all start?
It all started for me in motorbikes. I was a young tucker on a little Pee-wee 50 and progressed into motocross, and that was where I set my goal. I always wanted to be a motocross racer, and it was injury actually that led me to four wheels. So I completely stuffed my left knee and needed the full reconstruction. So that led me into the path of go-karts, and then from there, as most kids on four wheels do, I progressed into Formula Ford, into a historic car, and started doing a bit of networking and talking to the people that you need to talk to, and from there slowly just climbed the ladder over the last, I think it's 10. This might be my 10th year, I think it is. So yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, but I've loved every minute of it.
10 years and you've made a lot of progress, I'll tell you what. So you started on two wheels, as you're saying, maybe 7 years old, 6 years old, I'm gonna have a guess.
Yeah, I was about 7. Yeah, I think it was when I first started doing it pretty seriously. And it wasn't, the transition to four wheels didn't come till I was about 13, I think it was. So I did a fair share of two wheel stuff, and then I suppose the proper motorsport journey that I took, where I started building a bit of a profile, was in the cars. So yeah, I wasn't setting the world on fire in go-karts. I was just sort of doing standard stuff and getting a couple podiums here and there. But then once I jumped into a car, everything just sort of seemed to gel a lot more, and everything made a little bit more sense. And as silly as it sounds, I think jumping into a car sort of slowed everything down a little bit. And as much as you're going faster, everything feels like it's a lot more slowed down. You can sort of really finesse that craft. And, go-karts is full on, zipping and zapping between corners and things like that. So once I stepped into cars, everything just sort of made sense. And I've loved it ever since.
Yeah, man, I see what you mean. Like, those viewers out there do know that I race a Formula V, and I do a bit of rally on the side as well. When you step into a car, like on a asphalt track, you really do feel a lot slower, even though you're going quicker. Like in karting, it was turn right, turn left, turn right. Like you were always on the wheel. Where in motorsport, like on the bigger tracks like Sandown, Phillip Island, for me especially, you have a lot of time to reset, stay focused a lot, a bit better, because in karting, you're always focused, and then little distraction, you're off, right?
Yeah.
Where I feel like
the biggest thing is once you get, like, obviously the first time you go really fast, I'm talking in excess of 200 kilometers an hour. That's the first time you do that is like, whoa, this is fast. But as soon as you get like acclimatized to that sort of speed, everything just slows right down, and it all starts to feel a lot more comfortable and a lot more natural, it sounds funny, but it's the nature of it.
Yeah. Like I remember when I did rally, the first couple of times I'd done it, it was very like, oh, here, everything's just like surrounding you. But, sometimes you gotta take a breather and you gotta just reset. And after a while, it does, start to slow down, and you just start to focus more, and it becomes, in a way, I guess, easier to see where you're going. Because the first couple of times you do get a bit flustered. Like for you, personally, you've said when you go excessive of 200 kilometers an hour, which I don't believe I have yet, everything feels a bit quicker. But you've raced a lot of cars in your time. What was your very first car?
It was a 1988 Reynard Formula Ford. So one of the old school shaped Kent cars. A lot of fun, and I would say characteristically to drive, it was like a big lounge chair. So everything just felt natural. You could come in and do a big four-wheel slide through the corners, and it didn't feel like it was ever going to throw you off the track. So it was a fantastic car to learn in, and it was quite easy to get used to. And then obviously, like every car, you can drive it fast, but to get it really fast, you've really got to finesse that. So being able to finesse a car that is already comfortable to drive, I think it definitely helped me in the early stages of my career, because as I progressed through, I jumped in cars that were a lot twitchier, a lot harder to drive, and all of the learnings I had in the early days in the Reynard, I think that sort of helped me filter through a little bit.
Yeah, I obviously just quickly, I do apologize. I asked you a question that you already answered, but the Formula Ford, that even though Formula V and Formula Ford are very different, I've driven a newer car and an older car. The old ones are just so much, in a way, better to drive because they're not as twitchy.
Yep.
Yeah, you really do have to put a bit of steer, but if you can get it right, they do feel really good to drive. So how long did you do Formula Ford for?
It was a couple of years. I did 2 years just in historics. I did a bit of state level stuff against the late model Kent cars, but still in my historic car. And that was a good test because these kids are in, proper newer race cars, and I'm out there in my old dunger and we're taking it to them. So we got a lot of enjoyment out of that. And I think that taught me to push harder as well, obviously, because I had to extract everything out of my car to try to have a chance at beating the newer cars. And then after about 2 years of historic car driving, we stepped up into the National Formula Ford, which actually is right behind me, that one right there. So it was the Liztech, and that was in a Duratec car. We stepped up into the National Series and did, well, the plan was to do a full year, but at round 2, I actually had a pretty bad crash and I broke my neck and back. So we were actually out of the car for about 3 months, but we did get back in and we finished the rest of the year. So yeah, I guess you could say I did probably altogether about 3 years of Formula Ford combined with the historic and the national car. And then from there, that's when we stepped up to F4.
Yeah. So obviously you did have a quite horrific accident. If you don't mind, do you know what sort of happened?
Yeah, so it was actually at Winton, and it was a really wet day. We were the first category to go out on the track. Second round of the national championship, so we rolled out with brand new everything. We had new tyres, new brakes, both rotors and pads. Pretty much everything was fresh, and there was so much standing water on the track because we'd had so much rain that we basically said, look, we're just going to go out there, we're going to bed everything in, and the rest of the weekend was looking like it was going to be dry anyway. So I've gone out on the track and I didn't even complete a lap, as crazy as it sounds, but I was coming down the main straight over the start-finish line, and as I crossed the control line, I hit this big patch of standing water, and it was really weird. So because I knew I had fresh brakes, I actually got off the gas so that I could, coast all the way into turn 1. I didn't want to, cook the brakes or lock up or anything. But it just so happened that as I jumped off the gas is when I hit the puddle of water. So what happened was it instantly just did a full 180, and then I actually missed the first concrete wall and I slapped the second one at pit exit. And I was actually there a couple of years ago, and there was still the big mark in the wall that I left there, but it pretty much split the car in half. The gearbox went flying, and it was a pretty big shunt. So yeah, we spent 3 months on the sidelines, and still to this day I suffer from quite a lot of back pain. And I've seen lots of specialists, and everyone just says that I'm pretty much stuck with it. So it's a bit of a bummer, but yeah, it's one of those things. I suppose it's a bit of a friendly reminder that racing cars is dangerous, and even when you're out there and you're not pushing 10 tenths, it can go wrong pretty quickly. So yeah, it's a bit of a reminder for myself, but it definitely was a wake-up call, that's for sure.
Yeah. It makes me feel lucky because I also had a crash at Winton earlier this year at round 2 of round 1 of the National Series, round 2 of the State Series, where I coming down Old Pitch Straight into turn 3.
Yeah.
The rear stepped out on me because was the newer car. It was a lot more twitchier than the older cars. So I went to grab it and I put a fair bit of grab into it and it snapped the other way. And I launched over the curb. I launched off the curb. I skipped the gravel trap and nosedived into the fence.
Oh, wow.
And I ripped the top of my shins open and I had to go to hospital. But I obviously did do more damage than that. So I feel really lucky compared to you. You know, you suffered a lot more injuries. But yeah, it was it's quite a bad track if it all goes wrong, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. We'll come up quickly, that's for sure.
Yeah. Bit of a bummer, but you know, what can you do?
Yeah, it's all part of the racing. We know that there's obviously risk involved, and it didn't put me off my game. Like, I was sitting in hospital and Mum and Dad actually said to me, they're like, hey mate, do you really want to keep doing this? Like, obviously you just had a pretty nasty shunt, you know, we're not going to force you to continue. But there was never any doubt for me. I knew that I loved it and I knew that I wanted to get back into it. And you know, I wanted to prove that even though I'd had a pretty big shunt, I could still jump in and I could still be fast and try to have a bit of redemption for obviously what was a pretty stupid mistake. You know, it was the outlap and I crashed into the fence and hurt myself. So yeah, obviously that was a bit of a motivator for me as well.
You mentioned earlier that you've raced a lot of categories. What has been your favorite?
Hands down, the favorite car I've driven and competed in competitively would be the Porsches. We did 1 year of GT3 Cup Challenge. That was in a 991 Gen 1, so it's actually that car right over my shoulder here.
Yep.
Lot of fun, just pure race car, you know, really great power delivery. You really have to hustle the car around, and for me it was a huge learning year because I think the only competitor that year that was coming from production cars. And I had a hell of a lot of bad habits from production cars. Like, you know, my brake trace was nowhere. You know, my throttle application was nowhere. And I sat down with the team at McElrea and I honestly felt like a rookie because I was like, man, I've been doing this for so many years. We just came off the back of winning the 86 Series Championship. And, you know, I just jumped into this car and it was like I had no idea what I was doing. So I was really lucky I had that team around me because they spent a lot of time basically retraining my brain. Getting me to change how I was approaching the car, how I was approaching the braking areas and my throttle trace. And slowly but surely we built up over the year. And by the time we got to the last round, we actually clean swept the weekend with wins. So I suppose the proof was in the pudding that working hard behind the scenes, you know, doing simulator laps, doing lots of research, having calls with my engineer, working out where I can improve. A lot of that work behind the scenes ended up showing up with results at the end of the year. So it's a shame that we ran out of budget because the original plan was we were going to do 3 years and eventually step up to Carrera Cup with McElrea. But obviously, that's a lot of money. And at that point in time, I just didn't have the corporate support. And it's a real shame because if I won Powerball or if I won Lotto, I'd be straight on the phone to Andy McElrea. I'd be like, find me a car because I'd love to get back into Porsches.
Yeah. Oh man, that's awesome. You know, the progress you made to get to, especially where you are now, you know, sitting back, you know, you've got a wall behind you full of stuff and, you know, you've raced and you've been championing and obviously you'd like to go back to it if you could. But money is a huge factor. Like we were talking about earlier, but before we started recording, it's really hard on a budget. And when you do have like local businesses, like I do, they actually, you know, really help you out, get you back on track. But you also done TCR, which I'm not sure if many people know about. What did you think of the Alpha? Because I love Alphas and it looks really cool, the TCR car. So what did you think of it?
Yeah, to be honest, TCR was, I suppose, it was a bit of a negative side of my career. I was the first driver to sign up to the series and it was all looking really exciting. And the Alpha really excited me as well because, you know, before I raced that car, I didn't actually know how supportive the community was around Alfa Romeos, and there was a lot of Italian people who are absolutely crazy about it. Like the first round, I turned up and there was a swarm of people who I had no idea who they were, and they were all just they knew everything about me, and they just wanted to know more about the car, and that side of it was really cool, just to see how passionate they were as fans. The car itself, the one I was driving in particular, I feel suffered from quite a few setup issues, and I think that there was something wrong in the back end of the car looking back on things now, but I just didn't have quite a strong network around me. I didn't have, when I was with McElrea and the Porsches, I had that strong unit behind me, and I had people to talk to and engineers to fall back on. And when I was at my time with Gary Rogers Motorsport, I just sort of lacked that a little bit. So when I was trying to get that information and work out how to make the car better, everyone was just basically saying that it was me and that I had to fix myself, but I wasn't really getting any help on how to fix myself. So
yeah,
it was a bit frustrating, because looking at it now, like, I love that category and I think it's awesome, and I think it's got a lot of weight. The fact that it's global, there's WTCR, there's TCR categories all over the world. And that was what sort of dragged me into it, because I thought, jump into TCR Australia, do a great job there. Someone over in Europe or Asia or anywhere could say, hey, you're driving the same cars that we are here, jump on a plane and come and race for us. So that's sort of why I really like that formula. But I just don't feel like we put together a strong enough program to be able to execute it properly. So I'm probably not the best person to ask about how the Alpha was. It was a really cool car, a really cool support network around it as far as the fans are concerned. But from the point of my time in the car, it wasn't the greatest. So
yeah. Oh, well, that's obviously a bit unfortunate that you didn't have the success in TCR that I guess you'd like to have. I guess for you, so far, like, as in the storyline that we're up to, you sort of really wanted to have a go at these categories, and it was very hard for you because of money, and even just sometimes a bit of like wasted years in a way. Like, you probably could have looked back and said, I wish I'd done this instead of this, maybe. I don't know. Yeah,
definitely. Like, if I had a crystal ball, I probably would have changed a lot in my career. I wouldn't have experienced everything that I was able to experience without the journey I went on. So in a way, I look at it as a positive, but at the same time, there's definitely opportunities looking back at it now that I should have taken a bit more seriously, or grabbed it with both hands instead of just half a hand, and really put more effort into it. But I think that the year after the Porsche, we were fast towards the end of the year in the Porsche, and I think if we had continued that program, probably could have had some success in Carrera Cup eventually. But then obviously we did sort of half a year in TCR, followed that up with a bit of a cameo into Trans Am, which we were putting a program together for, and then COVID hit. So I suppose the last couple of serious championships I tried to race, they were sort of interrupted for various reasons. Budget's always been tight for me and my family, but we sort of we got lucky for a fair few years there with different opportunities, people supporting us. But towards the back end of it, it started to become more difficult. And I do believe that some of that was due to a lot of negative media from my time in TCR. It's not nice when you've got your name plastered all over the internet for negative reasons, and when you're getting supported by small companies and small businesses, if they're Googling you or if they're seeing you on Facebook, they want to see all the good stuff. They don't necessarily want to see the bad stuff, and they're not going to align their name with any negativity. So I do think that year, it definitely did a lot more harm than it did good. But if I had a crystal ball, I wouldn't have steered away from TCR. I probably just would have approached it a bit differently, and I probably would have placed my cards in different areas and made more of that situation a bit better. But I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and I don't take away from the fact that we still got to do some really cool racing and some really cool cars, and we've raced against some really amazing competitors as well. So it's been a crazy journey, but it's not one that was always rosy and happy. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you spoke really well then, about how you felt about it, because some people could have just said, "Oh, it was terrible," or whatever. But you obviously worded it very well, and it wasn't the greatest time for you, as you were saying. So, I'm guessing, like you said, you probably would have approached it differently, or you're trying to, move forward from it. You've also, done a few Bathurst 6 hours. So, you know, how many have you done, and what was your best result?
In the 6 hour, so I've done
Yeah.
2 Bathurst 12 hours. The best
Alright.
result I had there was a third in class, in the GT4 class. And I've done 4 Bathurst 6 hours, I think it is. So the first time I went there, we came second in Class D by, I think it was about 5 seconds over the finish line from first. So we actually went a lap down, and in the last stint, we were bringing that lap back, and we finished by about, if we had one more lap, we probably would have been able to get them. But
Right.
so we came second that year. The next year I went there was in an Evo 10, and we ended up 5th outright, and that was before they brought in the Class X category. So we were, I think, we finished on the lead lap, and we were 5th outright, which was pretty crazy. Because again, we came back from a lap down, and we fought our way back onto the lead lap. And then the most recent one I did was in my Evo 10, and we ended up getting third in our class. So we were pretty pumped with that. It was it's always a crazy race. I mean, Bathurst 1000 is obviously this weekend, but for us production car racers, the Bathurst 6 hour is our 1000, and it is very similar in a lot of ways that anything can happen. It's a race of attrition, so you've really got to make sure everything's perfect on the car, make sure your team's all around all their procedures, and even when you've got everything in a line, something silly can ruin your race. Like the year I did a second year in an 86, and the gearbox blew up in the first hour. So, there's things that was a brand new gearbox, but it obviously wasn't quite right. So, it's things like that. It's a race that you really got to get all your eggs in one basket and really give it a good crack. But I've had some good success up at Bathurst, and it's a track that I hold closely to my heart for a lot of reasons, as many racing drivers do. The coolest experience I ever had at Bathurst was actually when we won the 86 series, which was on the weekend of the 2017 Bathurst 1000. And I actually wrapped up the championship by winning race 3 on Sunday. So we won race 3 and the championship in front of thousands and thousands of people at Bathurst, which was really cool. So I love the track, and I'm pretty excited to watch it this weekend.
Yeah, 100%. Same as me. So you won the 2017 Toyota 86 Championship. Same weekend, I believe David Reynolds also took the Bathurst 1000. Obviously, very cool experience for you. How did the crowd go off when you come by the last corner? Do you remember? Or?
It was actually, so that race, we went to safety car, and then when they restarted the race, it was a 1-lap dash to the finish line. And at that point in time, I was so tunnel visioned on making sure we had a perfect lap to win the race and the championship. And I do remember just, head down, fully focused. And as soon as I crossed the finish line, I was just screaming. I have no idea what was going on around me, because I was too busy screaming and talking to my dad on the radio. But it is really cool when you do an endurance race at Bathurst, whether it be 12 hour or 6 hour, when you do the final lap. I don't know how these people get there, but there's people everywhere on the track lining the mountain, and everyone's cheering you on for the last lap, because obviously you've completed the enduro. So that's a really cool experience to witness, because you've done such a tough race. It's always really hot and you're quite tired. But the last lap, you see everyone cheering you on, and it's really great. And I love that the crowd gets so into it.
Mm-hmm. Would you ever do another Bathurst 6 hour if the opportunity came up?
Definitely, absolutely. Like I'd race whatever I can get my bum into the seat of. So I still have the massive passion to race, and if, as I said, if I could put a budget together to step up into a larger category, then I definitely would do that again. So same with the Bathurst 12 and 6 hour. If the opportunity arose, I would definitely put a big effort in to make it happen.
And would you have any tips for someone who could do the Bathurst 6 hour in a year or two, maybe?
I would start networking with the people that are already involved in production car racing. So when I stepped away from open wheelers and I bought a production car and started doing production car racing, it was actually a massive shift in my career. We were spending a lot of time focusing on F1, getting over to Europe and trying to do the big multi-million-dollar scheme that they all do over there. But then once I stepped into a production car, a lot of things changed. Obviously, you're out there and you're racing and you're getting to network with all these people who also own production cars. And that was the biggest thing for me, because obviously, when you're there, when you're racing and networking and gaining lots of respect from these other drivers, they're more inclined to then give you a drive or give you a call. So what happens quite frequently at the 6 hour, not so much the 12 hour, but it definitely has happened before. One of the 12 hours I did, I was called up a couple of days before the event and had to quickly get there. So, but at the 6 hour, more often than not, sometimes someone will either get sick, sometimes injured, feel unwell in the car. So there's always teams that are like, oh, we've quickly got to find someone to put in the car. So if you've networked enough and you've got your name into this sort of spotlight of 6 hour racing and production car racing, more people are likely to recommend your name. And then, if you've got your business cards and you're handing your phone number out to people, then you're easily accessible. So if you make it as easy to access and easy to contact, then you get a good shot. The other thing you can do is start trying to align yourself with people looking for drives. Obviously, there's a lot of Facebook pages that I'm a part of with production car racing who put up, drive packages and things like that you can link yourself with. It's hard because to start with, obviously, you need to have a budget. You need to be able to pay your way. I was lucky enough at quite a few of the endurance events that I did that it was a ride and drive, so I didn't actually have to pay to be there, which was something I never thought I'd ever see in my career. But because I'd done a lot of that networking and I had a lot of really great people around me, as soon as someone needed a driver, I was getting recommended, then I was getting the phone call, and then the partnership started from there. So the biggest thing I would say to as someone who hasn't done any production car racing or 6 hour racing before, I would start hunting around on some of those pages, looking for people that are looking for drives, and then trying to build up a bit of a network profile from there.
I also saw that you drive, you drove a Ford Sierra RS 500 at a historic Sandown event. Can you tell me what it was like?
That car was unbelievable. I've never driven something that's just it's such a beast. That car went from, I think, off boost, it was about 90 horsepower, but then as soon as the turbo kicked in, it jumped to about 650. So it was trying to keep the rear tires on it and get the power to the ground was probably the hardest thing. And it was because of that reason, you had to try to keep the car on boost, which was really weird because you sort of you're on the gas before the apex and you're trying to bring that boost up without bringing it all at too early. So we had a lot of fun in that car. We clean swept both weekends. We did one at Sandown and one at Phillip Island, and we got the lap record at both tracks. Yeah. I don't know if I still have the Phillip Island one, but I think I still have the Sandown one in Heritage Touring Cars. But that was so much fun. That was a really cool car, and honestly, after driving that, it gives me so much more respect for the legends of our sport who were racing the Bathurst 1000 back in the day, because there's no power steering, there's nothing, and you really have to muscle those cars around. So that was a really cool car, and I'd love to drive it again.
Yeah, I believe it was Dick Johnson who used to race one.
Yes, yeah, John Bauer also used to race one as well.
Yeah.
There was quite a few of them around back in the day, but yeah, just a really raw race car like that. That was that was cool. The thing that got me so impressed was how fast they were able to make those cars.
Yeah.
The era that they were building them in. Obviously, nowadays we've got so much more technology and a lot more access to all of that information. But back in the day, they were still able to make things so cool and so fast, and that's the thing that really impressed me.
Like when people look at old cars, they, some people think, oh, they're not as good as today. But when you think of what technology they had back then compared to what we have now, it's just so incredible how they were able to build these just horsepower machines,
Yeah.
And my dad, being a Ford man, obviously raised me one too. He loved, Sierras and Escorts. They were his sort of car.
Yeah.
On the subject of Ford, you also raced it in the TA2 series. Did you enjoy that? And how was driving a Mustang, even though they're all the same car?
Yeah, it was really cool. It was again a different style of driving that I was used to. The biggest thing about the TA2 / Trans Am cars is the tire. I find the tire is the biggest thing you have to get your head around. Obviously, the Hoosier has a really big baggy sidewall, and notoriously you see a lot of the fast guys in Trans Am sliding the car across the track because that's how you execute a lot of speed. But from the driver's seat, it was really weird to get your head around because it feels like the car's stepping out, but it's actually just the tire rolling over and gripping up. So you kind of have to train your brain to just get used to that feeling, which was cool. And towards the end of that, I actually didn't drive it too many times, but after driving a few times and getting more confidence, it started to become a lot more fun to drive. But to start with, it was terrifying. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. This thing feels like it's going to crash. But no, they're a cool car. It's a really cool category. I think that it's definitely got quite a few years of really competitive racing.
Nah, that is very, very cool. But let's just talk about some of your ambassador work for Kids with Cancer Foundation, which is such a great cause. Can you tell me more about the foundation and what is your involvement in it?
Yeah, look, honestly, touching on what I've done through my career, one thing I wish I could do with a crystal ball is actually get involved in my ambassador role a couple of years beforehand when I was actually, doing a lot more of the national level racing, because obviously I would have been able to give them a lot more exposure where I was to where I am now. But look, the Kids with Cancer Foundation has been one of the most rewarding things I've ever aligned myself with. And I truly do, I want to push to try to get as many drivers and people like yourself to align with a charity, because, you're in a position where you have access to hundreds and thousands of fans and people that all follow motorsport. And so for so long, I raced selfishly and all I was doing was promoting myself. But now when I race, I'm doing good and I'm promoting a fantastic foundation. So I really believe that more people should get around a foundation, but the one I've chosen to align myself with the Kids with Cancer Foundation, obviously it's a really close subject, and it's a tough one to talk about, because obviously what kids that are suffering from cancer is horrible, and it's such a tough thing that those young kids are going through. And some of them are born with cancer and they haven't even seen life without it. So for me, my role as an ambassador is not only to promote them, but I also do a lot of work behind the scenes, obviously, interactions with the kids. And at each round this year, I put a photo of a kid on my helmet, and then I invite that family to come to the racetrack, and they get to go through a tour of the car and then obviously enjoy the festivities of the racetrack. But to me, it's a way to break up the day-to-day life for them. A lot of the time they're sitting in the hospital and they're going through treatments and feeling quite unwell. So you need to be able to break that up for them and take them to the racetrack, and also for their family to get out of the house and the hospital and go and enjoy a day out. That's the big thing for me. Obviously, I'm also aligned with them in financial capacity. So 20% of all the sponsorship I'm raising this year is going back to them as a donation at the end of the year. So as much as we're raising awareness for them, we're also raising money, and we're also giving back to them as far as, interactions go, and trying to bring a bit of positivity and a bit of a smile to them. So yeah, it's really rewarding seeing how excited the kids get when they get to the racetrack and see the race car. And more often than not, it actually brings a tear to my eye, because I hear a lot of stories. I've been to a few functions. Just recently, I went to the Gold Ribbon Ball, and you hear some horrific stories that are heartbreaking. But at the same time, what the foundation does with helping the families and giving back to them, and also the hospitals in research, it's really rewarding being a part of it. So I've loved every minute of it, and I've always thinking of ways that we can try to increase our alignment and try to give back to them more if I can. So it's been really good.
Yeah, obviously, like you were saying, I've also done a little bit, like I did Racing for Pink, which was a foundation for racing for women who had breast cancer. Obviously, it was a very sad disease. I think our goal in 1 year was to raise $1,300, I believe. Don't quote me. But me, Matt Morrison, Ed, and Craig, we all did that, and it was very fun. We used to hand out stickers for like $2, I think it was, at the tracks, and people would put them on their go-karts. And also my uncle ran into MND, which was really horrific for him. It was not a good time in his life, so I decided to raise some money for MND Victoria. He didn't want me to give the money towards his, sort of, to him. He wanted me to do it for the next sort of people, like he wanted me to donate to MND Victoria, not to him, so we could pass it on to future, MND patients who, need the support. So yeah, it was a very sad time, and I think we raised $2,000 for him. And as a 10-year-old kid, it was, very hard to do, but, we managed to do it with the support of people. And, lots of my viewers who watch my show actually did do a lot of the donations, so I really appreciate it. Yeah, and it's a fantastic foundation that, you support. So where can our viewers go and donate? And we'll add the details in the post when we go live.
Yeah.
But where can they go to find it?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, on all of my socials, I pretty heavily promote them. But if you go directly to their website, or if any of their social medias is the Kids with Cancer Foundation Australia, they've also got the kidswithcancer.org.au, which has a whole bunch more information on their website. But there's heaps of different ways you can help out. Obviously, if you're a motorsport lover and you love being involved in racing and helping out foundations, that's what my program's all about, raising money for them and awareness. If you think about, just wanting to help out the kids, obviously you go directly to the website. You can purchase lottery tickets because they do a lot of raffles. You can also purchase little gift packs that they hand out as well. There's heaps of different ways you can get involved and donate your money however you feel best. So yeah, there's a lot of ways, but if you head over to their socials, they have a whole bunch of different things like wigs for kids and, scare cancer during Halloween and things like that. So yeah, jump on board and get involved, because what they do is really awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely a great thing that they're doing. And then you're also helping out. So, guys, check in the description. I'll put some links to where you can find out if you'd like to donate, or even just read up on the information so you have a bit more knowledge about it. But what advice would you give to people who are looking to compete in motorsport, or young kids who are getting into cars for the first time?
Have an open mind, and especially if you're really fresh to motorsport. The thing I tried to focus on, and I still do to this day, is try to just beat your personal best. So many kids come in with this mindset of, I've got to be the best straight away. And honestly, you'll burn yourself out way too quickly. What you need to focus on is going out there and, say, for example, you go out there and set a 1 minute 10. Next time you go out there, try to get a 1 minute 9.9. And that's progression. You know what I mean? So every time you go out there, if you've gone a little bit faster, that's a win. So as long as you keep focusing on that in your early days, before you know it, each time you go out there, if you're getting a little bit faster, a couple track days, you'll be sitting there going, wow, I've knocked a lot of time off and I'm close to what a fast time is now. So my biggest thing would be focus on that. Once it starts to get a little bit more serious and you're getting some results and trying to navigate through the realms of motorsport, I would then, my advice would be careful, because motorsport's a business. So a lot of people are out there to make money, and if they see you as a young talent who, you know, can come through, you've got to make sure you align yourself with trustworthy people, trustworthy teams, because you can get slapped in the face pretty quickly in this industry, and that's one thing you have to be careful of. Obviously, you've got to put a lot of trust in the people you circulate yourself with, whether it be mechanics, working on your car, sponsors, teams, everyone that you align yourself with. Even if you get to the point of having a manager, whether it be a social media manager or a sponsorship manager, you really have to make sure that you're careful who you select, because you have to have a lot of faith in them, that they're not going to, you know, go behind your back and stab you in it. So they're probably my two biggest things. Focus on beating yourself every time you go out there, and be happy with that as a win. And then obviously, as you get more serious into it, really be careful where you align yourself and make sure you make the right choices.
Yeah, I can agree with you there. So yeah, it's a big thing about trust. And for the people who, you know, now learnt about your story and want to know when you're racing next, where is your next event?
My next event is actually at the Bend in South Australia. So I think it's only about 2 weeks away or something like that. So round 4 of the Australian Production Car Championship. And then we finish it off in November 11 to 13 at the Bathurst International. So that's the last round of the Australian Production Car Championship. And then next year, I have no idea what we're going to be doing yet. So our main focus is trying to wrap up our national class championship, which we're currently leading. So hopefully in the next 2 rounds, we can have some good results and do that, and then go back to the drawing board for next year and see what comes out of it.
Yeah, man. That's great goals for the rest of the year anyway. But do you have any sponsors who, you know, currently help you out, who keep you on track?
Yeah, definitely. Big shout out to Hunter Pacific Ceiling Fans, State 1 Fire Protection and Security, and Shockwave Signs. They're the 3 main ones that are jumping on board this year and helping me support the Kids with Cancer Foundation. So obviously a big shout out to them, because without their help, not only would we not be able to race, but we wouldn't be able to help out the foundation either. So it's a win-win here. So big shout out to those guys.
Yeah, it's very cool what you're doing for the foundation. You know, I really have a lot of respect for you for what you're doing. Where can the viewers follow you on social media?
My Facebook page is Jimmy Vernon Racing. My Instagram is Jimmy Vernon, but the O is a 0. So they're my 2 main ones. And yeah, jump on and check it out.
But it's been fantastic to, you know, chat to you tonight, Jimmy. And you've achieved so much and raced so many cool cars. It's been great to hear about your journey so far, and I wish you all the best for the rest of the year in the Production Car Championship. Hopefully I get a chance to see you at the track sometime soon. Like I said, I couldn't go to Bathurst International, but I only have Island Magic left this year at V's, as unfortunately we won't make it to the Winter Nationals as I hope, while we fix my engine, because like I did mention, I had some issues with it. But remember, everyone, to support the Kids with Cancer Foundation if you can. And for anyone racing this weekend, make sure you drive fast and take chances safely, of course. Thanks, Jimmy.
Awesome. Thanks, mate. Cheers.